Hello and good evening. Today we're talking about gaming and the role it plays in a healthy and encouraging lifestyle. And the more I think about playing games, the more I realize that you really ought to have a level of diversity in what interests you. And it's easy to want to get immersed in one particular game to the point where you kind of let that one title define you. And there is something to be said for not just never seeing anything through. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you're going to do something, you've got to put some effort into it. Otherwise, it's not going to be fun. If you're always just going from one thing to the next and you never actually see it through, then that's not fun. But at the same time, there's so many amazing things out there. And I think you kind of do yourself an injustice if you're so focused on one particular title that you don't really see all the different things that are out there to inspire and captivate your attention. For example, MMOs can be very time consuming games because they're by nature designed to be endless. And on one level, that's what makes them so much fun. But then on another level, that can make them feel like a job in some cases. So I think it's important to find a balance there. And when I think about an MMO, I feel like the fundamental reason why we play it is because it gives us the opportunity to connect with other people, whether that's directly in the form of a guild or something like that, or indirectly in the sense of just maybe playing the market board, participating in the economy, or doing activities in a world that you know is just shared with other players. So maybe you'll have an interesting conversation in global chat or something like that. MMOs are great if you find one that you enjoy, but you should look at that sort of like, I guess your social time or your unwinding time or whatever. But then there's other games that are more creative, like city builders and colony sims and management sims and all sorts of other titles. Titles which are in and of themselves quite amazing. I know I have a lot of them. I've been working on kind of getting into more. And one thing I've realized is I don't want one game to prevent me from making the most of all of the other ones that I already have in my library that I've been thinking, oh, I would like to play that game. I'd like to get around to that. But then you think, well, I'll get to it after I do my dailies in an MMO or something. And then another day goes by and you don't actually get to those other games because you're playing that one game you feel obligated to sink time into. So that isn't really healthy, and it's something that I've sort of tried to get away from. Um, and I think that's kind of maybe that's um, a little bit conflicting because on one hand, I think MMOs are pretty amazing. And then on the other hand, I'm kind of saying, maybe there's a limit to how much you should play them and how wrapped up you should be in them because there's other things you can do. And I think it's important to realize both. But definitely I think it's important to broaden your horizon so that you're not experiencing a sort of tunnel vision. And then the other side of it is sometimes when you step back just a little bit and you say, okay, you know what? It's just a game. I don't have to play this game. I will if I feel like it. But I'm going to do other things. And if I don't get around to it, then I don't get around to it. Then it takes the back seat just enough so you never feel that sense of negative obligation. where you think, oh man, I have to do that. And sometimes when you let go a little bit, it has the opposite effect. And it doesn't mean you play it less. It means that you play it more meaningfully and more mindfully, because when you are playing it, you're doing it because you really want to, not because you've just sort of built up a habit and you feel like you're somehow doing yourself an injustice if you don't live up to the expectation. Life is so full of amazing, interesting things. It's really important that you live your life chasing them and consuming them. There's an old friend who once told me that life has loveliness to sell. Buy it and never count the cost. And it's so very true, because life is short, but it's also not too short. There's always time to do the things we want to do if we make time for them. Life is, in many ways, quite long and easy, and wonderful and blessed. But when we have the wrong outlook about it, then sometimes it feels like it's short and hard, and there's never enough time to do the things we want. I think if we realized how good life is, and if we really valued our own lives, then we'd respect ourselves and we'd respect others enough to devote the time we have to things that are meaningful, to things that inspire us, to things that excite us, that give us a sense of active imagination, a sense of meaningful accomplishment, a sense of positive connection. When you're a child, think about how amazing the world seems. You see all these things that excite you, and there's toys you want, and there's games you want, and there's a great outdoors you want to explore, and there's just an endless, boundless number of things that you want to experience and you want to find out about and you want to be doing. And you just wish that you could be unfettered to have more of those things and do more of those things. And then as we grow older, as we enter adult life, quite often we lose those things and we trade that wide-eyed wonder for a sort of a cynicism, a negativity, a desire to meditate on things that are negative, to accentuate the problems, to find things to complain about, to make problems for ourselves if we don't have them already. And we're always doing things that are harmful to us, all the while saying that we don't have time for the childish things that aren't important. But what's really important in life? Isn't it important in life to just enjoy your life? And to do things that give you the opportunity to share that sense of enjoyment and imagination with others? Isn't that really about all there is to it? So maybe you do that by reading a book or playing a video game or spending a day outside exploring or taking pictures or making music or studying something that you think is interesting.
Can you hear me?
But whatever it is, it goes back to being interested but not obsessed, to be fascinated but not defined by any one thing so completely that you don't have the scope and the vision necessary to just be open-minded and see good in the world wherever you happen to be. So, my goal is to spend time working through my Steam library, playing all the games that I've been building up over time that I never actually played all the way. It's to make friends in the MMO space and enjoy the concept of diving into some sort of a world that I can use as a way to explore and express imagination, and to see good in the world, and to try to disconnect from all those negative things that are toxic and that don't bear good fruit, and to try to make my way through life without complaining or being frustrated about things or being worried about
That was it, right? Sometimes
tomorrow or yesterday, or for that matter, how I spend my time. And I find that the more I let go of the expectations, it's kind of like I was saying, if you stop trying to make sure that you play a game all the time and you define your personality by it, then, when you let that go, then it's easier to just enjoy it, enjoy the experience, just for what it is. And then you might make more progress, and you might do it with less time spent because it's not a burden anymore.
I take no pleasure
And I think letting go of some things that are negative in life means that you have a lot more time to do things that you once would have said you don't have time to do because, there's only so much time in the day, kind of thing. Well, okay. There's only so much time in the day, so you don't have time to play your favorite video game or something. So, what are you spending your time doing? You spend time at work that you don't need to spend at work because you're trying to prove something to the boss or chase some kind of success or polish your badge or your rank or something, or you're doing social things that you don't enjoy instead of doing the things that actually bring you joy because you're more interested in what people think of you than in what actually brings happiness into your life. Or you spend time scrolling your phone or looking at social media or something like that you never think, oh man, I sure am glad I spent all that time scrolling through Facebook or something. You don't get anything out of this, a lot of those things. You give up some of those things, and then you have plenty of time to do other things. Things that you always put last. It's like that illustration of a bottle, a jar with rocks and pebbles and sand and water. So
ready to
it's
rest my head.
illustrated that if you want to put all these things into the jar, you got to put them in the right order. So first you put the big rocks, and then you put the pebbles in there, and then you put the sand around the pebbles, and then you can put water in there around everything else to get the jar all the way full. But if you put them in the wrong order, then you're never able to really fill the jar up and get everything to fit in it because you have to put the big things in first. That's the idea.
Here comes that stroke of luck.
But then the question is, what are the big things that you're trying to fit in your life? And then I guess the other question is, why do you even need to put all the rocks and the pebbles and all the stuff in there? Because do we have this idea that the jar has to be all the way full? that we have to fill it up and get everything into that little amount of space. And if we don't, then our life is not going to be good enough or not going to be meaningful? Do we put big things in first because we think that they need to be in there? And then we put the little things in, and we spend our whole life trying to figure out what's the big thing and what's the little thing, and what order do we have to put them in so we can get everything to fit. When the truth is, they're all just rocks of different sorts. You don't really need to put them in at all. If you want to fill the jar up, you might as well just fill it up with water to begin with, because water is more useful than rocks when it comes to supporting life, right? So I guess everything is subjective. And maybe that's the greatest allegory of them all. That yes, you do have to put the big things in first if you want to have room. You prioritize a few big things instead of filling up all your time with all the little nothing things and then wondering why you don't have time. But then also sometimes it's good just to not expect that you have to follow a set path, that you have to fit specific things into your life in order for it to have meaning. You just let it be. You let it be what it is. And you try to make the most of what you are doing in the place where you currently find yourself. But you stop always thinking about what's tomorrow going to bring and whether yesterday was enough and whether your life is going to be enough. And you just breathe it in, and you realize that life is always enough, without any additions, without any expectations. And the only real waste of time we ever experience is the time we spend thinking that our life is a waste of time, instead of thinking about how much of a blessing our lives really are. I guess that's enough. That's going to be our little philosophy talk for today while I run around collecting things and killing monsters here in ESO. Till next time, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and thank you for watching.